Hello and welcome. This is Radull Live. Good to see you this Saturday afternoon. And we're nice and early so that when English Premier League football starts, you don't blame me that you don't know what to watch now. We will finish in good time for you to watch the English Premier League matches. And by the way, because clocks changed, the early game is actually at 3:30, not at 2:30, so you have plenty of time. I do need to remind you guys, though, that from today we're coming to you courtesy of ABSA. And courtesy of ABSA, they would like to assist you in your life. You know, like tomorrow when Man United plays Arsenal, there's going to be several assists that are coming from Arsenal so that we score against Man United. Yes, ABSA would like to assist you. So what you need to do is make a deposit into your ABSA account. And every month, 10 people will have their deposit of up to 100,000 shillings doubled. And you stand a chance of winning 1,000,000 shillings every month, only with ABSA, the assist. Now, allow me to introduce my lovely guest, Silalei Shani. Have I said it correct?
You have said it very well.
I have said it correct.
Very correct.
I've been practicing. Not Silalei, Silalei. How do you say it?
Silalei.
Silalei.
Yes.
That's a Maasai name.
It is.
I think Maasais have the most beautiful names. It's unfair.
They do. I'm not even trying to flex, but they do.
They do.
They do.
And I'm going to adopt one.
Please, feel free.
Silalei, you are a Kenyan international when it comes to women's basketball. You've played club basketball. For us to start with, for those people who've just walked in and have never heard of Silalei Shani, introduce yourself and tell us how you got into playing basketball.
Okay, well, I've played basketball for a really long time. My mother is the one who actually introduced me and my brothers to the game at the ripe age of 6 years old. My dad brought a hoop, put it in the backyard. My mom brought the ball, and they were like, go.
You were hooked.
We're hooked. So I played by myself and with my brothers all the way until, I guess, high school. I played in the high school basketball team. And there were so few girls who were interested in basketball that I actually played with the boys' basketball team.
Okay.
Yeah. So until later, maybe my last 2 years of high school, then there was actually a girls' high school team, and I was able to join that. So I didn't play organized basketball until I went to college. I joined the team quite by accident. I didn't know that there was a system of how things run over there. You're supposed to be scouted, then they take you there, and then you have a slot on the team. I thought you just show up, you try out, and you join the team.
Oops.
So I showed up and I was like, I'm here. And they were like, we already have 15 players, but let's see what you have. They liked my skill set, so they decided to keep me on the team, but I was red-shirted that season. That means that you will do everything but play games, but suit up for games. So it sucks. It's very difficult.
Wait, so that's an official stance, as in you're in the team but you'll never play?
Yes. It's called being red-shirted.
What's that supposed to teach you?
Well, keep in mind it was my first time playing organized basketball. So the coaches felt I did have a certain level of understanding I had to attain in terms of understanding systems and just organized levels of play. So I trained with the team. I did the morning runs. I did the weightlifting. I did everything. And I would say maybe I was even better than some of the girls who were actually on the team, but I just could not play in the games because they'd already decided they're 15 players.
That's hard. That must be hard to take.
It was tough. It was tough. It was
but
really,
it builds
really tough.
character.
You know what? I tell a lot of people that that's really where I built character, not in a cliche way, but that's really where I learned things like endurance, mental strength, patience, long-term goals, you know. So it was hard, but I do appreciate that experience. Went on to play 4 years of college ball at Messiah College in Pennsylvania. And then after that, I worked for a bit in the States and then decided I wanted to come back to Kenya. Came back to Kenya, ended up joining the local club team, Eagle Wings.
Eagle Wings.
Yes.
I know Eagle Wings because they win all the time.
We used to win all the time.
Used to win all
now
the time.
we lose a lot. But at the time that I joined, we were the strongest women's basketball team in the league. We won the league 3 times back-to-back. We were Zone 5 club champions 3 times back-to-back.
Is Eagle Wings the club that has USIU backing, or which one is that?
No, Eagle Wings is self-sponsored actually.
Ah.
And has been since I joined. It was led by the late Coach Smarts and was extremely, extremely successful until his passing. So after his passing, I joined a few other teams. In the meantime, I was also a part of the national team. I was captain of the national team for about 3 years. And then due to several frustrations, I decided to retire from national team basketball.
And we'll get to those frustrations later.
And I didn't play for the national team again until last year, actually. Well, yeah, I would say that's my experience with the basketball.
That's your basketball. I just want to send a few shout-outs. If I don't, they start
complaining.
I can hear it when someone is yelling in the comment section. A shout-out to Anyanga Omanyo. He says, great show. Hassan Mehdi, enjoying the show. Mark M. Kiragu says, Najua, how... Him is going on about Arsenal. Ken Wood Jane says, great. Mark Kiragu says, present. Lobs Makipa says, great. Balozi Ken Artist says, I'm tuned in from Kitale. Florence Radull, oh, that's my sister. She's following. Stalin Oma Jones says, present. Franco Kello Nikondani. They say it like it's roll call. But guys, thank you so much. And make sure you share the link, because we're going to get into some of the, in quotes, domains of basketball in a while. But what has your experience been like between, I mean, you had experience playing for college football in the United States. Basketball, you're allowed to correct me, college basketball, or I won't call it professional, but in terms of how it was organized when you were in the States and how it's organized here, what's the difference in how basketball is organized? And playing at club level, playing at national team level?
I mean, it was definitely a culture shock for me, coming from a place where it's indoor gymnasiums. The athletics training team takes great care of all its players. You have ice right afterwards. You have a fridge full of Gatorade, for practice sessions, not even just games. You have the full kit. You can focus on the game. You don't have to think about the et ceteras. Whereas coming back here, playing for a self-sponsored team, we really had to struggle to raise funds for tournaments that we qualified for. The infrastructure was very different. We're playing those days of when the basketball courts were at railways. So you're playing on tarmac under the noonday sun. One side, the rim is maybe 8 feet. The other side, the rim is 11 feet. So it's hard to really perfect your shot. So those were big challenges. I would say the biggest disparity between standards of play in the West and maybe here in Kenya is just the infrastructure. Yeah, the lack of courts, lack of balls, lack of organization. Maybe in leagues you can show up and your game is cancelled because the other team didn't show up. Like that doesn't happen unless there's a snowstorm or the bus had an accident.
This is a Kenyan sport problem, and I want us to get into the issues a bit later on. When it comes to Silalei, Silalei.
Just remember Usilale.
Usilale.
Yes.
And remove the u.
Yes.
Yeah. When it comes to you do a lot more than just play basketball, because you also host a show. Tell us about the show you host.
Okay. Well, I host a show called Bake. It's an African basketball show. So it's focused on African basketball, the sport itself, but also the culture around it. Started off in 2013 and partnered with Zuku. Then we went on to partner with Kwese until they shut down. And right now we're mostly online based, but it's about uniting the African basketball community. And what I love about the show and the space is that we're telling African basketball stories from the lens of an African. We're not asking ESPN to come and do the story or a Western.
At you, not
yes,
with you,
exactly. So we really try and present the stories in a way that the people whose stories are being told appreciate it and feel like they're being heard from their perspective as well. So I've been a part of that. I was a TV presenter and producer for the show, and then graduated to being a co-owner of the show. Yes.
And when you cover Africa, because at some point I want us to discuss basketball on the continent versus basketball in Africa, because when it comes to Kenya, we are further we're less professional than a lot of African countries. In the course of doing your show, what have you found in, like, say, Sudan, Angola, Nigeria versus the way Kenya basketball is managed in Kenya?
Right. I think one of the things I've loved being a part of the show is that the basketball culture across the continent is so different, and yet you find clear similarities from one African country to the next. If you look at things like infrastructure, you have countries like Angola and South Africa, which are a bit higher up on the spectrum. Like Angola, there's a half basketball court every block. And their players are treated professionally. There are American players who even come to Angola, and there's a player called Italy Lucas. She's American, came to Angola, fell in love with the country, got an Angolan passport, considers herself Angolan. She is paid very well. I bet if you'd ask her, she'd prefer to play for Angola than even like the WNBA.
Wow.
So it's that kind of level. I think Mozambique they also pay pretty well. And then you have countries who are struggling a bit, like maybe Kenya, some other Southern African countries.
Struggling a bit, you're so polite.
I'm trying to be very polite, where players are not paid well. You can't consider playing basketball professionally as a career. You have to do something else. There's not enough money to sustain even a simple
that's the story
lifestyle.
of Kenyan sports.
Yeah, exactly. So I think but just looking at the basketball culture across the continent, it's so exciting. Like in Tunisia and Morocco and Egypt, gyms are packed out like a football stadium. And they have the flares and they have drums. Even in Senegal, like they have a whole like side of the stadium of just dancers and singers, and you'd expect that from
a festival.
Exactly. You'd expect that from football, but not basketball. But in those countries, it's just that huge. So I really love just the differences and also celebrating the similarities.
Just a few comments here. Kila Bay says, Carol Zima alarm Yagari. I've switched off my alarm from here. Of my German machine. Should I say machine? Melans Amariati present. Guys, by the way, you're allowed to ask questions about basketball in Kenya. I know a lot of people a lot of my viewers are football diehards, but I insisted that this show has to be about sport because the problems, the challenges are similar. The solutions are similar, but they learn as much as I learn about basketball. Raima Jaka says present, and Okwiri Amos says, I'm very alert. So I think people want to know more about sport. And I've realized with most sport, the minute you start following it, you understand it, you pick a team, you actually get hooked. Yeah?
True.
I want us to go into some of the issues. I don't know whether to start with club or country. In terms of how Eagle Wings was managed, are you still with Eagle Wings now, or you left?
I left and then I came back about, I think, a year ago.
In terms of how the club is managed, what's the structure of the club? How does the club make money? Do you get revenue from, do you charge fans to watch your games? Where do you make your money from?
Honestly, I don't think you can say that we make money to the point of profit. Essentially, it's about, especially right now, there are not a lot of teams that are like sponsored. There's a time where Posta sponsored a team, KCB, Cooperative Bank. I think all of those companies pulled out of sponsoring a basketball team for various reasons. So it's the responsibility of the team to raise the funds themselves. Those funds usually come from well-wishers and campaigning and mostly people who are just happen to be fans or maybe former KCB players, former team players who want to send money to the various teams. So unfortunately, you have a situation where a lot of teams actually haven't paid their league fees for years, in fact, simply because they have no way of raising those funds.
Well, that's unfortunate because we see all over the world that sport is actually your career. But you're forced to do so many things, which means it limits the focus you can put on the game. Because, and I know there's a time Eagle Wings came to me because I think you were going to play continental football. Basketball. You're going to play continental basketball, and there wasn't enough money for flights and stuff, and they wanted us to help fundraising. That's unfortunate because what potential is there in basketball?
It's huge. I mean, even at that time for Eagle Wings, when you were approached, the team had actually qualified for a huge international tournament. It was the Club Championship Games. And had Eagle Wings been able to travel, they probably would have placed very high in that particular tournament. I mean, the next year they did travel, and we ended up third in the continent. We came home with a bronze medal. That's the highest any Kenyan club team has ever gone in the
And
entire...
imagine how far they would go if they had the support, if you weren't worrying about fundraising at the same time you're training.
Exactly.
There's a comment here from Raima Jaka. She's a very dedicated fan, unfortunately a Man United supporter. She says, my two sisters played basketball, the younger one up to national level, but she did not continue. Unfortunately, this is the story of Kenyan sport. You're good at it in school, you probably get into club level. At some point you realize it's not going to pay your bills, then you get a job in quotes, you know. Ngesti DS Dunga Mata, I don't know if this is true or not, you need to confirm it. He says, Silalei Shani once ditched her honeymoon for basketball to be with the team in Kampala. True or false?
Propaganda. Deny.
Dunga Mata, that is propaganda, but the way she loves her team, I wouldn't be surprised if she ditched something else, not your honeymoon. Not if you found the right man. Trust me, if you ditch him, probably he's not the right guy. You're like, let me get away from this guy at the moment. I'm honored to get into a few national team issues. You said you played for the national team, you were captain, you stopped playing for the national team, you came back. What happened?
I loved playing for the national team, being able to play the sport that you love and then represent your home country. There's not really much to describe that feeling, you know. I loved it. I loved training hard with my teammates. I loved going for those particular tournaments and being a part of major competitions like Afrobasket, All Africa Games, qualifier tournaments. But there was always a reoccurring issue, and that came down to the issue of allowances and the issue of preparation. You know, hear about a tournament, it's happening, you hear about it maybe 6 months ahead of time. You start training and working out for it 3, maybe even 2 weeks ahead of time. You're setting yourself up for failure. There was that lack of organization from the organizing parties, if I might say, maybe the federation, to just make sure that we're prepared so we put on a good show, you know. And every time we'd go for those tournaments, like other teams, I'm talking about teams like Angola, Senegal, would say the Kenya team is so good, so strong. If you guys would just prepare a bit more, you would go very far, you know. And for me, coming back from the States where it's freedom of speech, equal rights for all, I really came back gung-ho about making sure that there were equal rights, making sure that if we were promised something, we were paid or we were given it. And there were a lot of people who were not happy with that in leadership. They felt like I was attacking them, whereas for me, I'm just trying to create a system that is fair and is profitable for the players. Exactly.
As a player, to be treated like a professional.
And for me, I realized that maybe the problem wasn't even so much the leadership, but the players in the league who are just not willing to take a stand for change. You know, you have a lot of people who are afraid of victimization. You know, if I say this, I'll be singled out and I'll be told I can't play and I'll be told I can't do this and the other. And I think a lot of players were afraid of that. A lot of players maybe were even threatened or told they would be kicked off a particular team if they spoke out on this. And for me, that's a small price to pay for the greater good. And once I realized that the problem was probably the players and not just the leadership, I decided I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. It's just frustrating.
It's actually, it's a tricky situation because I've had this conversation with volleyball players, I've had this conversation with the Harambee Starlets, and it is the same thing, that they do fear being knocked off the national team. And yes, I wish they could take a stand the way you took a stand. But I guess, and I've spoken to so many of these girls and they say, this is the only opportunity I'll ever get. And they probably come from families where everybody's looking up to them to pay the bills, regardless of how small the money is. And your family is telling you, you play for the national team, don't mess it up.
Yeah.
So it's a catch-22 where the players must speak up. They must speak up. And I tell the starlets the same thing. I tell the volleyball guys, the people the same thing. You must stand up for But then unfortunately, we do live in a society where you will get knocked off the team. It's not right. It's not fair. It's probably then an issue where we need to do something about management. There's an interesting comment here from Julius Yego, the Julius Yego. He says, Radull, say hi to Silalei. We met first in All Africa Games in Maputo, where I won my first senior gold medal. She has interviewed me too. I like her passion for sport. I wish she could get a managerial post in the near future. And that is what we need. We need people who care in those positions of influence. Is that something you'll consider? And would you like to say hi to Julius?
Hi, Julius. Hi, Julius. So nice to hear from you. He's a great guy.
It's really fantastic. I've interviewed him on this show, unfortunately on Zoom because he was in LD, but he's a good friend of mine as well.
Yeah, great
and
guy.
And a Ghana like me.
I mean, I tell people, a lot of people have asked me to do that, and I say no. I don't want to manage, because like you said, leadership is the problem, but I think the players themselves are equally the problem. So if you manage players who are not as passionate about change as you are, who don't want to sacrifice for the greater good, then you're kicking a dying horse. It's nothing you can really do. So I don't plan to be in any managerial position anytime soon, but I do think there are great people right now who I would love to see in the Kenya basketball's leadership. But unfortunately, there's a lot of complications. It's not easy. It's not as easy as let's vote them in. There's a lot of red tape and complications in terms of shifting the current management out and bringing in new leaders who can pick up the mantle. And again, it's not a hit on the old leadership that we want them out. It's like, let's bring in new leaders. Let's see what they can achieve. Let's see what changes they can make. But again, this is Kenya, where a lot of leaders want to be in there until they're 95.
You're being a little diplomatic, because for me, and it's not just basketball, by the way, because unfortunately I'm not that read up on basketball. I don't follow, sadly, and I'm guilty, the happenings in basketball as probably as I should do. So I don't even know who's most of the people who are running the federation, but the old leadership has let us down.
Yeah.
The old leadership has let us down. There is one of the officials who I won't name, when the men's team got that African title, and all of a sudden there was all this interest in basketball, and I would have expected the federation to take advantage of that, to begin to recruit fans and get organized. And somebody sent me a tweet and said, where can I get basketball fixtures, results and stuff like that? So I sent him a WhatsApp message, and he sent me an address to a portal that needs a password. And I said, well, aren't you guys on social media? Because it's free. Social media is free. All you need is somebody to constantly update and say, these are the fixtures, locations, the prices, the costs of entering, if any cost, so you can come and watch for free. And I told him, okay, do you have a website at least? Because I've seen you don't have any social pages. And he stopped responding. I'll give you his name after the show. I won't put it on the show because of legal reasons. But if the federation themselves are not going to take advantage of sudden interest in a sport, then it's hard for us to keep banging on the door, because here were people wanting to know, where can I watch these guys more permanently? And the officials of the federation couldn't give that basic information.
I think sometimes it's also an issue of the officials not being genuine fans of the game. Like, I can think
then they need to get out.
Yeah, they need to get out. They need to get out. And I'll drop a few names that I would love to see in basketball leadership. There's a gentleman called James Mavisi. He currently runs the University League. There's another gentleman called Peter Kiganya. He's based in the States right now. These are people who, if they're not former players, they are huge fans of the game. They're people who have degrees in communication, degrees in business management. So they understand the marketing element. They understand the infrastructure and what foundations need to be laid down in order to...
How a proper business runs. We need to start running our sport like a business.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
There's a further comment here from Julius Yego. I hadn't seen the second part. He said, being in Team Kenya requires sacrifices due to the issues that come while you're in that team. Frustrations always. It wasn't the desire to win a global medal. If it wasn't for the desire to win a global medal, many of us couldn't be wishing to be there, and also patriotism. which he's basically saying, and Julius, by the way, Julius Yego doesn't mince words. He doesn't mince words. And people said he's a little fortunate because his is not a team sport where you can be removed and replaced. Heaven forbid somebody says, Team Kenya says, we've removed our only javelin former world champion.
Can't happen.
There would be riots in the streets of Kenya, you know. So he's lucky, but I think his character, he would be vocal anyway. Even if it was a team sport, he would be vocal anyway. And I think that Maputo, you were in Maputo.
I was in Maputo for the
Maputo is
Africa
where
Games.
you guys slept on the floor, and I think Julius himself slept on the kitchen floor while
Wow.
representing Kenya for All Africa Games because nobody had organized hotel accommodation. They found some flats and packed everybody in it. Were you subjected to that, or you got?
No, I think you're
slightly
talking about
better?
a different All Africa Games because the All Africa
Oh.
Games he's talking about was the one in 2011, and that one I must say was very well organized. We were actually compensated well, and for me, I was like, this is the standard. This is what we can look forward to. And
No
I was-
sooner. You
No
say in
sooner
Kenya. No sooner than.
So we actually had a great time in that 2001 Maputo Games, but I heard that All Africa Games kind of plummeted after that particular year.
Okay, I want to read a few comments and then we go into our break, and then the break is not long. We'll also remind you of the fixtures of the English Premier League matches, the table, how it looks, the big game tomorrow. Yes, all that is coming up in the break, but let me just go through some conversations. Hilda Chepto is saying, I love the conversation. I don't know if you met Hilda. She also has a sports show, I think, on Ibru. And
I'll have to check it out.
yeah, Hilda Chepto. She's a hardcore Liverpool supporter. All these people are confused. Jeremy Murevi, watching from Makuyu, Muranga County, Min Vessel. Her eloquence, though, amazing. Hey, she should have been Jango. Don't worry, they're eloquent Masais as well. So, guys, keep your comments coming in, and I'll still read some of them in the second half of the show. As I said, stay close because we're giving you the fixtures of the EPL games, and I'll tell you how you can win money just now, or rather win team jerseys just now by predicting the score of tomorrow's big game. So stay with us.
Behind the greatest goals is a great assist. As the official banking partner of the Premier League, ABSA is giving you the ultimate assist so you can achieve your goals this season.
That is a cracking assist!
You're getting all the games, goals, and glory, exclusive access to legends and players, plus game-changing banking solutions. Follow your local ABSA Facebook page for more. Get the assist from ABSA and get things done. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
Welcome back, guys. I hope you've seen when your English Premier League team is playing this weekend. By the way, tomorrow it's 7:30 p.m., right? Manchester United versus Arsenal. And if you stay on this page, the Radull Live Facebook page, I'll be posting how you can win team jerseys just by predicting the score of that game. Yes, we're going to give away 2 EPL jerseys courtesy of ABSA, and yeah, I'll put up the post right after this show, and you can predict the score of that game between Man United and Arsenal right up until kickoff time tomorrow. So if you put Man United 0, Arsenal 4, chances are you're going to win a jersey. I just like saying that. Guys, as we celebrate Premier League action powered by ABSA this season, ABSA want to assist you to keep winning in life. So what you need to do is make sure you deposit money into your ABSA personal or business account, and deposits up to 100,000 shillings stand to be doubled. There are 10 people who are getting their deposits doubled every single month. And the campaign runs up until the 12th of December. And we're also giving away 1 million shillings every month simply by depositing money into your ABSA account in the Shinda Mita Naligi competition, guys. So make sure you do that now. Start depositing money in your ABSA account now. Now, I'm a hardcore Arsenal fan. Which team do you support in the English Premier League? And if you say none, we fight.
You know, since I don't want to fight you, I would say Chelsea.
Since you don't want to fight, does that mean you're really a Chelsea fan or because you don't want to fight?
I actually don't follow the English Premier League right now, but I was a Chelsea fan. I used to be. Don't ask me how many years ago, and don't ask me how they're doing now. But yes, please don't kick me out of your house.
My producer is a Chelsea fan, my director, so I don't know how he's going to take it.
We're many here. You're outnumbered.
He's hardcore. There are a few comments here, and it's actually Julius Diego. Sorry that I'm always on Julius's post, but it's because he's talking about, he says, Silalei, you were the first in the group to go, as in to leave camp. Huh? So athletes, we slept on the floor. This is the Maputo All Africa Games. We slept on the floor together with the team manager, though he couldn't agree while he was going through parliamentary inquest about those issues. So basically, the team manager knew about the issues that happened in Maputo. He says, Carol, remember the athlete? I can't remember the federation that went to Maputo by road. He said perhaps Silalei missed that. You probably missed it.
I think I did because he's right. I left before the rest of the team.
Well, after you left, the team slept on the floor.
Hiya.
Julius Diego slept, I think it was the corridor in the kitchen. Hilda Chepso says she'd actually love to interview you for her blog. Hilda, I'll give you the contact after this. Because women, I love women with sports shows, and I support them all the way. Killer Bay says sports management is no different from national politics. Turning this around is going to be so hard. Hilda then says, generally sports in Kenya is mismanaged in all aspects. We still don't see the value of commercializing this billion-dollar industry. That's part of the frustration. The fact that it could be a billion-dollar industry. Right. But in Kenya, it's not, because we play games. Let me turn focus a bit, because when our men went and won Africa Championship, they won Africa Championship.
Yes, they did.
Then
they were runners up.
They were runners up.
Yes.
We were all over them. When I was speaking to Cynthia Mumbo the other day, she said, actually, do you know that our women's basketball team actually has more achievements than our men's basketball team? But when the women do well, and it's not just basketball, it's all sports. When our women do well, we're not all over them, which I'm guilty as charged. Somehow I blame you guys because I only report what I hear and what people tell me and what is emailed or broadcast or shared with me. But it is a fact that the women do well and there's silence.
There's silence. Like I said before, Eagle Wings getting that bronze medal at the club championship games, we came back to silence. Even the most recent Afrobasket, it's like we were thieves in the night. We came back and we paid our own taxi fares home.
Oh.
And that was that.
You didn't even get breakfast at State House?
We didn't even get a snack. So,
ouch.
I mean, it's a really sad situation. And actually, when I do interviews, I tell people, pound for pound, women's basketball is immensely more successful than men's basketball. When did the men's team qualify for Afrobasket? Women's team, we qualify regularly for Afrobasket, which is essentially the Olympics of African basketball. You know, but we're not celebrated. Usually there's a scandal that comes out from it in one way or the other, or it's a sad situation that I hope really would change. And I was kind of hoping that our men's national team would have spoken more about the women's national team while they were doing their media tours, but that didn't happen either. And that, for me, actually really disappointed me.
It's unfortunate because it's all sports. Our Harambee Starlets, we keep saying they're going to go to the World Cup before Harambee Stars. I mean, they do so well on the continent. They go for AFCON regularly. But look at the men who went for AFCON last year. Got 250 million shillings, you know. The women go and nothing happens.
Right.
Same with the Kenya Lionesses, the women's rugby team.
Right.
They were one of, I think, our first team to qualify for the Olympics. last year in Tunisia, yeah, our first team sport to qualify for the Olympics that have now been postponed, but nothing. Heaven forbid the men go, we're all over it. But just talking about the women's basketball, and I want to take you to the competition. It was last year, was it last year or the year before, where you guys did a video because you had not been paid your allowances.
Right.
Tell me about that episode and what happened next. Because I remember reposting the video and there was a lot of uproar.
Yes. Yes, we did send a video out. We had no idea it would go viral. We addressed it to our Women's Commission, and it had, I guess, for social media lingo, leaked, and then it was everywhere. And it was basically a moment of extreme frustration. We're going for a intense competition, 10 players. You're supposed to be 12 to 15. We went with one coach and one team manager. And
what's the norm? What should be the norm?
you have a technical bench of maybe 4 people. There's the coach, assistant coach. There should be a doctor. There should be, of course, the team manager. I mean, the mere fact that we're leaving our country to go for an international tournament without a doctor, anything can happen, and basically you're fending for yourself.
It's a contact sport.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were given $30 a person in our pockets, and the rest told you figure it out. The commitment was to pay $100 per player, which, to put it in comparison, I think the Senegalese national team were getting $5,000 per player.
And you're getting 100. And you're
We're getting
competing with
100.
them.
Yes. So we were, and there was no communication. Like that whole situation was, I think, exacerbated because of a huge lack of communication between our federation and the players. We were traveling blind. We get there, things are still blind. We're asking questions, no one is giving us answers. So essentially that video was a cry out for help. It wasn't an attack on anyone. It was a cry out for help, and it was received as an attack on the federation. We were told it was received as an attack on the Ministry of Sports, which again was disappointing because for me those are sideshows instead of dealing with the actual issue at hand. There's a time I traveled with the national team where there wasn't even money for sanitary pads. Like I was captain at that time, and players were coming to me and they're like, please give me some money so I can buy some sanitary pads. And is, for lack of a better word, is disgusting. Like for it to reach that point. So we sent out that video.
Those are things the team should provide.
Yes.
You shouldn't be buying your own
basic
and
necessities.
you're on international duty.
We sent that video, created a huge hullabaloo. We were told that we have to apologize to the Ministry of Sports in writing, which we refused. We were actually threatened that our passports would be taken away. We still refused because we said if we don't take a stand now, then we will never be taken seriously. Eventually, we were paid the whole amount of $100. And
A whooping
$100.
Wow.
And for us, it wasn't even so much the amount. It reached a point, it was the principle.
It's yours.
We said, if you want to keep the money, keep the money. We're not apologizing because we were giving facts. We were complaining about a very hurtful situation. But it created a huge stink. Articles have been written about the senior players who were considered the ringleaders and how we should be phased out. Attacks on even who we are physically, talking about our physical capabilities, saying new players should come in. Really hurtful things, you know. But when you've been in the industry for some time, it's water off a duck's back, really. But still, men's teams are not treated like that. Sometimes I feel like women's teams are attacked more because they feel women don't have a voice or will not speak out against it. And then they make it personal, you know. They'll attack people who maybe have kids, women who have kids. They'll attack people who maybe are older. I can tell you that one of the best players basketball players in the country right now is actually the team captain, Hilda Ndasi, who is above 32 years old. And she can take any youth player to town, you know? So are we going to kick her off? This is the national team captain. Are we going to kick her off because of her age? No. it's ridiculous.
But usually they'll use that as an excuse.
They use it as an
Probably because
excuse.
she's vocal
Exactly.
or, you know.
But if you have a male athlete who is performing at his peak at 45 years old, you're not going to kick him off. But because this person is a female or a woman, they want to attack her, and they want to attack that element of her ability. So it's very wrong. There's a lot of... it's very unfair in my opinion. So that was kind of the fiasco around the video, and a lot of players are actually still facing the repercussions now.
Of that video.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it because I posted the video. I don't even know how I got it, but I posted the video on my social media where you were all together saying we want our money. There was outrage. And then the next thing, a few weeks later, I'm like, have these girls been paid? And I was told by one of your colleagues that we have been told to apologize for that video before we get paid. So I'm like, but you've done the job. You've represented Kenya on the international stage. The government owes you money, and they're holding your money until you apologize for a video you put where you're asking for your money, which is outstanding. It was an insult. It's an insult to the players.
It is. It really is.
It's a complete insult to the players.
Yes.
Wow. This government of ours is special. Have things improved?
No, they have not. They have not. And I don't even think it is so much the government. If you go a little bit lower, I think it's the federation. If the federation handles things a bit better, if they approach maybe governments on time about these kinds of tournaments, you know, in 8 months' time, this tournament is happening. FIBA have released the basketball calendar for the year. We need this amount of money. Please consider it. And then follow up, as opposed to approaching the government 2 weeks before and then blaming the government, how can you not give us money?
It's a combination, my dear. It's a combination, and it's every single sport, because even where the government gets notice, I remember when the Malkia Strikers were going for the World Championships, was it last year in Japan or the year before?
Right.
They told the government 11 months in advance. They followed up. The government responded and said, we only have money for a 1 month camp, of which 2 weeks in Nairobi and then 2 weeks in Japan before the tournament. And the reason they don't do well is they never have proper build-up, because it's like, as you say, it's a 3-4 month build-up to an international tournament.
Right.
And we actually had to fundraise for them to get money.
Yeah.
And the government, they always use that excuse of, oh, when were we approached and all that stuff. And if you go to their office, they actually receive those things on time.
A long time
But
ago.
I also agree that a lot of federations are incompetent. They actually do not ask for these things on time. But even those who do, they don't get their money on time. I want to talk a bit about this African...
The Basketball Africa League.
Basketball African League. This is the
Yes.
one where Kenya was excluded.
Yes.
Yeah, I was talking to Poison Ivy. She's a DJ based in Dallas. I'm sure you know
She's
Poison
a friend
Ivy.
of mine as well.
She's a friend of mine. She got me into NBA games last
Yeah.
year. I went for Dallas Mavericks versus, who were they playing? I don't know. I was more consumed with what was happening.
The environment.
The environment than the actual game. So Poison Ivy, and she's a brand ambassador. She's a Kenyan, for those who don't know her, she's a Kenyan DJ. She's the official DJ of Dallas Mavericks.
Correct.
And she's based in Dallas. She's one of the ambassadors for African Basketball Championship. So she had released on her Insta story all the teams that were participating. And I inboxed and wrote, and Kenya? I mean, I knew why, but I told her, and Kenya? And she went into a rage. She's like, the embarrassment. I am a Kenyan. I'm one of the ambassadors of the Africa Basketball League. Kenya is not part of it. You tell us why. I know some of the reasons, but tell us why Kenya is not in it.
I mean, there was a series of qualifiers for certain countries. There were some countries that basically were waived and were automatically qualified. And then there were some other qualifying tournaments for certain teams to play in so that they can get a chance to join or participate in Basketball Africa League. I think the only team that Kenya had was KPA. And KPA did not finance the team to go to the tournament. So the players actually financed themselves, took a bus, missed either the first or the first 2 games.
To where? Where would they be?
They were going to Rwanda.
So they're going to Rwanda by bus?
They were going to Rwanda by bus. They landed like this. You wear your shoes, everything, and you go play. They already missed, I think, a couple of games. And because of that, it's even
You're not
though
going to win.
you're not going to win.
You can't.
Exactly. And the players really wanted to be part of the Basketball Africa League, and that's why they funded themselves to go. But they didn't have that support. It is. It really is. It's the hugest tournament on the continent that is funded by Air Jordan, backed by the NBA and FIBA. I mean, it's massive. I don't think there's any tournament across most sports that is of that nature. And for the Kenya team to not, or rather KPA to not receive support across the board from either the government or from KPA or from well-wishers to
That should have
participate.
been government funded.
Yeah. So that's how they missed that chance.
I know one of the other reasons why we were not even considered as a country for hosting was infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I saw when Rwanda were unveiling their, what do you call it? It's a whole complex. And I'm like, shame on Kenya.
And they were approached, Rwanda,
Kenya.
Kagame, Uhuru, and I think several other presidents, and they were like, listen, in so many years, we'd like you to build this sports complex and so that you can host these kinds of tournaments. And Kagame took it seriously, and clearly Uhuru didn't. And
we're still waiting for our 5 state-of-the-art stadium.
We're still waiting for Nyayo Stadium to even have lights.
But then people who were at Nyayo the other day, I need to go to Nyayo myself. Let me not criticize Nyayo till I go myself. But Nyayo is just a refurbished stadium. We
just
need
painted.
Infrastructure in every single county. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I was speaking to someone the other day and he's saying it's actually too much asking for state-of-the-art, but let's have a decent set up in every single county, not just in Nairobi. We have Nyayo and Kasarani, and then everywhere else in the country. Imagine the talent we could find. If you were in charge of sport in this country and you can focus on basketball, what would you do? What would you change?
I would change the availability of courts. You think about the greatest basketball players, even in the States. How did they start playing basketball? Their neighborhood court, Rucker Park in New York. It's just an outdoor court, and yet some of the greatest basketball players of all time have come from that court. When you have the availability of balls and you have the availability of courts, then you have kids starting at a young age playing the sport and developing that talent. And I think that's where I would begin. I would build courts all across the country, like you said, not just Nairobi. There's immense talent in Kisumu, immense talent in Eldoret. I'm talking about kids who are so good they don't even go through Nairobi, straight to the States. Nairobi is just to get to the airport to go on the international flight, So I would really do that and then create a lot of coaching camps so that coaches are qualified to teach kids at a young age the things that they need to learn so that by the time people are not learning how to play the sport at 16 years old, 17 years old, that's too late. You have 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds who understand the game, the basic fundamentals of the game. So now you're finessing that in the teenage years and allowing them to now go and really develop their games in international universities.
It's frustrating because it's like I'm having a football conversation. It's the same thing.
But that's how it is.
It's the same thing.
That's
There's
how
so much
is.
talent at the age of 8 and 9, and then we don't nurture them.
Yeah.
And then, oh, goodness gracious me. And it's interesting you mentioned coaching. What are coaching standards? And for the women's team, do you have women around you as well, or you have male coaches?
Currently, all the head coaches are male. There is an assistant coach, Evelyn Kedogo, who's quite qualified, and she's rising up the ranks. I anticipate that she will probably be the head coach of a women's national team. But generally, the head coaches are male. There are numerous coaching clinics that happen across the country. But I don't know, it's you have people going to these coaching clinics and then they still do the same thing in a practice session. It's like it's athletics training. You run the first 45 minutes and then maybe do skills development the rest of the time. And I think it's about developing a true passion for the game. When you have a passion for something, you truly study it. You'll watch game tape. You'll learn from other mentors. You'll ask questions. I don't think coaching is just a course. You evolve. I don't think coaching or learning how to be a good coach is just taking a course, getting a passing grade, and then you go forth. So I am happy that there are coaching clinics happening across the country. I'm really happy about that. But I would say that we need a higher level of passion and interest in coaching and developing that skill set from the people who want to take up that mantle.
Okay, but unfortunately, I mean, you were saying that some people just bypass Nairobi and go abroad, but then it means you have to be a person of means,
Right.
Your family has to be able to fund that
Right.
leap. There are a few comments here from Ochiweda. Ochiweda is a hardcore sports fan. He says, okay, the first one. Carol, ask her if Otula has improved basketball in Kenya. I'll answer half of that. Otula is the guy who inboxed me, who messaged me and gave me a portal with a password to give the fans. Actually, didn't give me the password. It asked you for a password to give the fans somewhere to find what's happening. But what are your thoughts on? If you don't want to comment, you don't have to.
No, I can comment. I think Otula has been in KBF leadership for a long time. I would love to see him step down. Not necessarily because he's a bad person, but he's had his time. He's had his season as a leader.
Let fresh ideas come.
Let fresh ideas come. I don't know why there's so much resistance to step. It's not like he's being paid 5 million shillings a month. It's not financial. There's no financial strong incentive to stay in that position.
But then why do they hold on to it?
It's
a power thing.
It's a mystery for me. I think it is a power thing. It's truly a mystery to me. And there's some other suggestions I've heard that I will not mention on air. But I would love to see him step down. Not because I have anything against him as a person, but as you said, fresh leadership. Let's see what they can do with the basketball league.
It's like what Barack Obama said. I remember him speaking at the AU in Ethiopia when his term was coming to an end. And he said, I can't wait to finish my first term so I can put my feet up and relax and say, I did it. He said, I don't understand African leaders who want to hold on to power forever.
And ever.
He said, I can't wait to put my feet up. And he's having the ball right now,
Yes.
And it's just what you're saying. It's a mystery.
It really is.
Ochiweda, he actually has like 5 or 6 comments. Let me just go through them. He says, this is an issue-based discussion. I'm really loving it. Carol, okay, this has been answered. He said, ask her if she has plans to vie for the leadership of basketball in Kenya in the near future. I'm going to join your campaign, even though you've said no. But I get where you're coming from, because people ask me the same thing. And I'm like, I think I can really make a difference by not being there as well.
Yes.
You don't have to be in that position. Ochiweda, you can repeat what you said earlier, just for his sake.
I will not be vying for any managerial position. I am sorry. But I like what you said, that you can do a lot without being in that position. In that position. Like, I would love to support the national team.
His last comment is quite interesting. He says, it's high time another gender takes up the leadership mantle of the federation.
I like the sound of that. I do like the sound of that.
By nature, women are more organized. Okay, for me, it's not gender. For me, in terms of leadership of the sport, is neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But the right person.
Correct.
Because you could bring in the other gender, our gender, and she still messes up.
Right.
But it's about the right person.
It's about the right person. A person who's passionate, a person who has the knowledge to take the game to the next level.
There's something you mentioned earlier, which I think is just very important to stress, is that to be in these positions of leadership, one, you don't necessarily have to have played the game, but you have to have a passion for the game, and you have to be a professional.
Correct.
Because that's what I keep saying in football. They're like, hey, put former footballers in this position and this position. I'm saying, if it's an accounting position, get me an accountant. If it's a marketing position, a good marketer doesn't have to have played the sport. They need to be a good marketer.
Correct.
And that, for me, is what we need when these leaders get into office. But I think the problem in Africa is because people helped us get here, we owe so many favors by the time you become head of a federation. So I'm looking at the people like, oh, you do that, you do that, you do that. They're not necessarily qualified.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you like a federation with the right person? Because when it's a professional position like a doctor, you don't go saying, let me put my friend. It has to be the right person.
It has to be the right person. And unfortunately, also, you'd be surprised how what people will do for something as small as 200 shillings. A lot of leaders buy their votes and buy their way into
They
positions.
learn from national office.
Exactly. That one is a It's a national-wide problem.
We pick up bad habits.
Yeah.
Just to finally end, because we have like 2 minutes left, how far can basketball in Kenya go?
You know, especially for the women, we can go so far because I've seen it. I've seen us be right there. I see when we go for our international tournaments, and I look at other teams like Angola and Senegal, Mozambique, and they're not out of reach. They're not out of reach. It just takes small tweaks in terms of preparation, small tweaks in terms of financial support to get us there. You know, there's sometimes where you can be like, anyway, we will not reach. The U.S. Women's Olympic team, we cannot reach that.
We are quite far.
We're quite far, you know. But continentally, Kenya can really make it to the top 3 within the next 5 years, with the right leadership, with the right organization, with the right backing. For the men, I would say we still have, it's a bit farther to go than the women. But also the mere fact of how we played in the Africa Champions League, ending up runners-up, the current coach, Coach Cliff O'War, his vision, his strategy over the next several years, the men's team can actually go very far as well. And then what encourages me is that they're really good people working on the youth. I have very good friends who are coaches in Kayole, the Far East Basketball Association, doing great things in that community, and other people who are working with kids 6 years old and up and really teaching them the fundamentals. So I think if they continue on that trajectory, the next 10 years will be in a very good place.
Just a few comments to end us off. Chiweda actually hadn't finished. She said, unfortunately, it's the same song. All our sporting entities crying about the various federations running those sports. It's so sad. For me, I think the government needs to crack down on the federations, because unfortunately the federations always run away and say, I don't answer to the government, I answer to an international body. But at the end of the day, it's Kenya and Kenyans.
It really is. It really
and
is.
I always say the potential of employment, sport can solve our unemployment crisis if we just get it right. And the fact that it's the same thing in all federations, what's the common factor? It's the government. Because I don't think, and do you think that the international bodies care enough? Or do they have so many countries they're looking after that as long as these top 10 are doing well, I really don't care?
It's true. It's really too many. But then again, it brings up, then does the government not see sports as a income generator?
They don't. I'll answer that question for you. They don't.
If they did, the way they see tourism as an income generator or other industries, then maybe they take it a bit more seriously.
Yeah. Killer Bay says it's hard to develop basketball or hockey talent, for example, in Kenya, since it's viewed like a town game compared to soccer and volleyball that you can play anywhere. He says, so most of the kids in rural areas learn about basketball in high school. True, but it's also what you're saying about let's have these courts around the corner. You know, I mean, if you look at the countries who, like Brazil is successful in football, India is successful in cricket, it's played on every corner.
Any available space.
So we need basketball courts.
Yes. That's how it begins.
But Nairobi, we've built flats. Where? There's nowhere left.
Actually, there's any patch of green, an apartment complex comes up, you know. And it's a lack of understanding of what sports does for a community. You know, even just making sure the youth are not idle. And it's a cliche saying, but it's a fact. If you don't have a court available, you be kids staying in their home watching on their phones or on social media. If there's a court right next door, they'll go.
They'll be busy.
They'll be busy. If you go to any court in Nairobi right now, it's always packed excessively. And the fact is, whether people like it or not, sport teaches you so many things about hard work, about discipline, about keeping time, about so many things. Life skills.
So many life skills that can be learned through sport. So we just build a better society. I get angry every time I have these conversations, but I feel hopeful when I talk to people like you, who I know are also doing, because you have some of your own projects and your what's it called? Bake.
Yes.
It's called
Bake
Africa.
Yes.
Bake Africa.
Yes.
That's the platform you use for your show.
Yes.
That's the platform you use for your show.
Yeah. But as I said, it's also a community, and like you said, we're also focusing and seeing how we can provide those opportunities for players. You know, showcasing African talent so that they can get noticed by scouts abroad, looking at how we can. I mean, I would love to build a court.
I'd love to build a stadium.
Oh.
Pesa.
Hakuna.
Hakuna. If somebody wants to find you, where can they find you? At Bake. Bake is spelled?
The Bake is spelled B-A-Q-E.
B-A-Q-E.
Yes. So we are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. And if you want to look for me, it's just my name, Silalei, on every single handle. By the way, fun fact, there's no other Silalei in the world.
Really?
Yes.
You're not like Carol. If you Google Carol, I think I'm on 2 billion. And anyway, Silalei, thank you so much for dropping by. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I've enjoyed this conversation. I'm going to make a point of getting more involved in basketball because I know very little.
Please do.
I know
I'll
very
invite you
little.
for a good league game when things open up.
But then I hope the federation gets its act together. Just to say, because a couple of years ago when I met, I know you know Nelly Odera. She's
Very well.
I was looking for somebody to give me fixtures and results over the weekends. I could talk about it on my radio show because people were saying, Radull, you only talk about football and the KPL. I said, well, the KPL have organized themselves. They send us fixtures, they send us results in real time. They tell us the injured, the red cards, the yellow cards, the fouls. They send us all that information throughout the week. Basketball sends nothing, nothing. So Nelly took it upon herself every Saturday morning to send me fixtures on text, to send me results when they happen. Then she moved on to doing something else. Then Cynthia did it for a while. Then she moved to Nakuru. And there was nobody left to give me any information. And people are saying, why didn't you talk about basketball? I said, well, I can't be everywhere. Somebody needs to give me that information. And when we have people like Otula, yeah, who sends me to a portal that needs a password to get fixtures. It's not a secret.
No.
Put the information out there,
Right.
you know. But I commend you and for standing up for your rights as well.
Thank you.
And I hope we could have more Silalei so that we can actually fix some elements of basketball in this country.
I'm hopeful. I am hopeful.
Boy, an air bump. I'm not doing fist bumps, I'm doing an air bump. Guys, thank you so much for watching Radull Live today. Next week, by the way, next week I'm hoping I get Helen Obiri. She's tentatively confirmed to be here next week. I think that'll be a fun conversation.
It should be.
I need to do more women for a while. Thank you for watching. Remember, I'm going to put a post up on this page sometime this afternoon for you to send in your predictions for Man United versus Arsenal. It's tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. courtesy of ABSA. And ABSA is going to give away 2 original team jerseys. By the way, when I say original, it's not what you get down the road for 1,200 bob. It's an original jersey courtesy of ABSA. But thanks for watching and we'll see you next week.